Welcome, Greek U Nation, to episode number 232 of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Eilon, CEO of Greek University. I'm a speaker and a two-time author. Our second book, From Letters to Leaders, Redefining New Member Education and Leveraging Belonging to Eliminate Hazing, is available now. So go and pick up that book today on Amazon. We call these episodes the Fraternity Foodie Podcast because there's nothing like great food to bring college students together. Fun fact, getting buy-in from your team is one of the most important parts of building a big business. To build a big business, you have to empower your people. Yes, it's possible to buy somebody's hands and their back to help you move your furniture from one home to the next on a short-term project, but you haven't yet captured their heart, their mind, and their spirit. To do that, you have to inspire people to reach deep within themselves and commit themselves to a higher cause or a higher purpose, something much bigger than themselves. Perhaps that's why fraternity and sorority has been so successful over the last century. We're committed to doing service and making our communities better in the process. And the more people we have committed to that, the more we can make this world a better place together. Addiction, homelessness, arrests. By the time our next guest, Roger Smith, was 20, he was on a direct path to nowhere. He couldn't stay clean. He couldn't get work. He couldn't support himself. After failing at multiple jobs, he found one job that he was very good at, excellent at, in fact. It was sales. First came a steady job, then came promotions, then came awards, even Salesman of the Year. All of this sounds great, right? Wrong. The success and money enabled Roger's addiction. He spent money on drugs faster than he made it, and in no time, his meteoric rise crashed hard, so hard that he lost everything and tried to kill himself. At that moment, with his feet on the sand of the Pacific Ocean and with water surrounding him in the dark, he made a commitment to himself to get help, and he's never looked back. Within a decade, he'd become the CEO of one of the most financially respected insurance companies in the entire world, sober. And so this is his story from rock bottom to rock star CEO. Welcome to the show, Roger Smith.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you so much.
Of course.
A real pleasure to be on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you just have an amazing story. I mean, everybody loves the comeback story, the comeback kid, and certainly you are, living proof that that actually happens. So I can't wait to share this story with all of our listeners all over the country. Let's go back to when you were a teenager, because at that point, you were living on the streets of Santa Monica, California. You were addicted to drugs. You had dropped out of high school. You ran into trouble with the law. So talk to us a little bit about your early family life that led you to be at that point at such a young age.
Yeah, so, I was born in New York City, and my father went to jail when I was 3 years old. So, and listen, just a little side note here. I had no relationship with him, but when I was just turning 15, I was just starting to get into trouble. And I guess my mom had asked him to fly out and to talk to me. And he said to me, Roger, your brother and your sister, they're meant to go to college. You, on the other hand, maybe you should pick up a trade or something. Thus, the GED to CEO, a lesson in there is be very careful of what you allow into your mind, because it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. At any rate, my mom was a single head of household. And so from a very young age, I seemed to have been on my own. I was always selling. I was always hustling some. I was always like, I'd steal my brother's comic books and sell them in Central Park. So I was always looking for ways to make money. My mom remarried, and at the age of 8, my stepfather went bankrupt. And back then, what happened was if you went bankrupt on the East Coast, you moved as far west as you could. So we moved from Manhattan to Malibu. And it's not the Malibu of today. It was the Malibu of, just a bunch of apartment beach shacks. I was a pretty good kid. I mean, I didn't get A's and B's. I got B's and C's. But I was in the chess club, I was in the woodworking club, I was the star of the junior high musical. Pretty good kid. On the summer before high school, there was like a flip switch. It was the start of the hippie era, and whatever happened was that all of a sudden there was all this rebellion in me, and I was rebelling against anything. So within the first 90 days of high school, I got kicked out of high school for, not wearing socks with my sandals. That was a principle that I was, that I was going to stand for. So I went from there to, starting to get high on drugs. I sniffed toluene, which was literally a solvent to clean barnacles off of ships. And from there to before the age of 16, being a heroin addict and on the streets. So I will tell you, Michael, it would take many, many, many more years of therapy to figure out what happened when that flip switched, but it did, and that's where I was.
Wow, what a story. And then, the next part of the story is that your best friend was shot right next to you while you were running away from a failed robbery attempt. Talk to our listeners about what happened that day.
Yeah, so Greg was he was my best friend, a very charismatic kid, pushing the envelope. And it started off, it was the evening, and we were always hanging around the evenings getting high. And we're walking down the street, and all of a sudden he grabs a trash can and he throws it through the window of this pawn shop, grabs stuff. We start running, and I guess the pawn shop owner must have been in the back. He came out and he shot, and Greg fell right next to me. I kept running, and it's one of those places where me so easily, and I wish that would have been a bottom. I wish that would have been, wow, that's my bottom, I'll change. But I unfortunately, I had many more bottoms in front of me, Michael.
Wow, that's a scary story. I mean, oh my goodness, I can't even imagine something like that happening. And obviously this continued, in terms of your behavior and getting high. I mean, how did you finally get clean, get your mind right, and then get your career back?
So, I was a 20-year functioning addict. I remember the night I was living in a little cottage in Malibu, and I'm on my hands and knees, and I'm searching through the carpet for little slivers of crack cocaine, and for hours and hours. And by the way, that picture right there is the picture that I keep in front of my mind at all times. I never, ever, ever want to go back there. And I remember thinking right then, you know what, this life isn't for me. Nothing good is going to happen. And I just was going to walk into the ocean and just end it, just walk downstairs and walk in the ocean. I didn't. And I ended up going into rehab the next day, and finding a rehab back then, that 35 years ago, that wasn't easy. I think there was like 4 in the state at that time. But I will tell you that it takes so much negative energy to be an addict, and all of a sudden when you're sober, if you could take all that energy and all of a sudden move it positive and move it to your career, I'm telling you, Michael, it was like turbojets. It was like all of a sudden everything was moving forward, and was moving forward positive. I think that's what really was a turning point in my life, and a turning point in my career.
Mm-hmm. I'm just wondering, I mean, I'm sure you have a lot of regret about your early years. I mean, you told the story about your best friend getting shot, and all kinds of things happened along the way. How do you overcome that regret? How do you forgive yourself after you're clean?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I got to tell you, the only way that I have figured out how to do it is to try to inspire as many people as I can. So the purpose of the book that I just wrote is to inspire people. And it doesn't have to be as drastic as it was, but even people that they're feeling stuck. They're feeling stuck in their lives. They don't know where they're going. They don't know what's going to happen. And the book hopefully inspires you and goes, wow, I mean, if that guy could do it, imagine what I can do. And that's right. Imagine what you can do. And so I just try to inspire people, motivate people. And you know what? Maybe that's my payback. Maybe that's the way that I kind of get rid of the pain and the regrets that I have.
Yeah, what a story. His book is called The Most Unlikely Leader. So go and pick up Roger Smith's book today because, wow, what a story. And I'm sure there are people that you might be able to see some signs where somebody is a functioning addict like you were for 20 years, because it's hard to keep all of that covered up. There are signs that, hey, maybe something is wrong here. So what are those signs in somebody who is a functioning addict? And then how do you go and get help from that point?
So yeah, unfortunately, that really is a curse. You know, it'd be nice if you weren't a functioning addict and you just fell and then you moved on. But
Mhm.
unfortunately, that wasn't my case. I think that what happens is you start to burn the candle at both ends and you rationalize it. You know, you go, well, I work as hard as I play and I play as hard as I work, but it is not sustainable. And so what you'll find is you'll have bursts of success and then periods of self-destruction, bursts of success, periods of self-destruction, you know, one step forward, three steps back. And as I said, it is not sustainable. As far as getting help, the interesting thing is that people have probably been trying to help you for quite some time. Your friends, your family. It's not like it's hidden. They know what's going on and they've been trying to help you. So then it's just a matter of saying, okay, yes, I want the help. I need the help. You know, of course, all the meetings, AACA, NAGA, you know, all of those, when you go to a meeting, you realize, wow, I'm not alone here. There are people just like me, you know, going through the exact same things, and it gives you hope, and it gives you hope.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for sharing that. I think that's great information. Anytime somebody sees, those periods of success, three steps back, obviously there's a big problem there, and hopefully we can get help to that person. You're the former president and CEO of American Income Life Insurance, which is a huge life insurance company that actually started in 1951. And you obviously know how to make a good impression. Nobody, gets to that level unless you know how to make a great impression. So for all of our listeners that are college students, new professionals, how do you take control of a room in 3 easy steps?
So you're going to hear me talk a lot in the next few minutes about trust, because trust is so important. And part of taking control in a room is about building rapport, building trust. So, as a salesperson, we did like a mom and pop at the table sale, and I was entering people's homes. And so people display things that they're proud of, whether it's a trophy, a plaque, a picture, something that they're proud of that they put on that mantle. And it was my job as a salesperson to start to create that rapport, create that trust, and talk about the things that they're proud of. Try to get them talking about those things and create that conversation. On the big stage, I've never walked directly onto a stage. I've always walked from the side or from the back of the room. And I purposely did that because on the way down, I want to be shaking hands. I want to connect with this room. I want to touch it. And so by entering and shaking hands, it's the same thing. I'm starting to create that rapport. I'm starting to create that trust. Sometimes I'll move people physically around. In sales, that mom and pop kitchen table thing, I'd have the wife get me a glass of water, because later on she was going to have to get the checkbook and write a check to me. So, through physical action. And even in a big room, if I see there are people in the back, open seats in the front, I'm going to start physically moving people around to start, gaining control. Practice what you are going to say or do. Practice so much that when you come into that room, you exude confidence. If you're not confident, they're going to feel it. And so just work hard at whatever you're going to do, say, so that that confidence comes out. And just one other thing on that, and this is super important. People want to believe in what you're saying. And in order for them to believe in what you're saying, you better believe in it. And so I call it the 4 elements. I think first you got to believe in yourself. Second of all, you got to believe in your product. Third of all, you got to believe in the leadership, who you're following. And fourth, you have to believe in the company. And if you can believe in all these things, walk into a room and have that strong belief, they're going to know you believe. They're going to feel your passion, feel your belief, and you're going to be able to control what goes on in that room.
Wow, that's great advice. I mean, even as a speaker, somebody who, speaks on a weekly basis on college campuses, even I'm picking up tips of things that I need to do, which is fantastic. So I love it. I mean, I learned just as much as our listeners do many times.
All I have to do is remember my own tips, but otherwise.
That's right. Now, one other thing that, since, we're talking about college students, I mean, mentorship is really an important thing for successful college students, for new professionals, even veterans in the industry. I think it's important for them to have mentors. So what is the power of multiple mentors?
Oh, this is such a great question. And I'm going to tell you, it has made the difference in my career. First of all, with the multiple mentors, just remember that you're adding on. It's not like, oh, I had a mentor, now I'm replacing it with this new mentor. You're adding on to that knowledge. So my first mentor was my stepfather, and he's the one who brought me into the business. And he was a closer. And so, he taught me that art of the sale, that rapport, all the way, to the close and the button up. My second mentor was the founder of the insurance company that I ended up running. And he taught us about the social injustices in the world, and keeping mindful of that. He also taught us about patience. And when we get into leadership roles, it's amazing how impatient we get. It's like, hey, I just told you, don't you get it yet? And the reality of it is, you didn't get it on the first time. Why are you expecting them to get it on the first time? So just be patient with people. And also, he taught me to look for the potential in people. I know that he sure looked for the potential in me, because I was rough, very rough. So look for the potential in people and be patient with them. And then my third mentor was actually the CEO of the holding company, Globe Life. And he taught me 3 things, and there's major things in my life. And I hope that it will help your students. Number 1, he said, nothing's as good as it seems, and nothing's as bad as it seems. Life early on can have such high highs and lows. And if you're in one of those lows, the good news is it's not as bad as it looks, and you're going to be out of it. And if you're in one of those high highs, well, guess what? You're going to hit obstacles, and they're not going to be as high for that long. So it tends to level out your life a little bit. He said, respond, don't react. And that's such a good one, because before that, I was just putting out fires. Oh, there's another fire. Oh, react to the fire, instead of logically thinking about it and then responding to it. And the last thing was about motivation. And I was kind of taught, that you use emotion for everything. So therefore, if it was positive, I was happy, slapping them on the back. And if it was negative, I was yelling at them. Well, that's not a good thing. And so what he taught me is use that emotion for positive motivation. But when it comes to negative motivation, when you have to deal with something, deal with data. Let the data speak for it. Take the emotion out of the deal and let the data speak for it. And that really, really changed the way that I led people. It's almost like, I read Maxwell's book, The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. And I remember reading it early on and going, darn, I've like broken every law. I got a lot of work ahead of me here. So,
yeah. Well, listen, those are some great tips. I know our listeners are going to absolutely love that. And you're right about those low points. I mean, the low points are going to happen to all of us, no matter how successful we may be over a lifetime. There's going to be those low points. But, when those low points hit, just understand that tomorrow it's going to look a little bit better. So it's like sometimes you just need to give it some room, give it some time to breathe before you react. And that kind of gets into, the react versus respond, right? And so if you give it that room, tomorrow morning, you're going to look at it with fresh eyes and be like, you know what? It wasn't as bad as it was yesterday.
The next day will be even better.
It's so interesting. That's great stuff. So, there might be students that are listening right now that are in organizations, could be student organization like a fraternity or sorority, and maybe things aren't going very well. And so what are 3 decisions that the people listening today need to make in order to turn their organization around?
All right. So remember, if it was easy, everybody would have it. If it was easy, everybody would be a leader, right? So making decisions as a leader is not easy, and some of them are very tough. I remember that one of the toughest lessons I needed to learn was that if the people are not buying into my vision, and I've done everything that I can to make sure that they understand the vision, the systems, everything behind that, tried to get buy-in. If they're not going to do it, then you know what? You got to get the people off the bus. Yeah. You have to surround yourself with the people that are buying into you and buying into your vision. And the people that aren't, you don't have room for it, because eventually it's like a cancer. Eventually it will sabotage what you're trying to do. So, it's like, I know you want to try, you want to keep trying, but you're so much better off taking that energy and putting it into somebody that wants to be coached, that wants to be led, than trying to put it into that person who basically, has already written you off, right? Mm-hmm. The second thing is have a very clear vision of where you want to lead the group. The number one characteristic of a leader is that they are visionary. They see further than the people that they're leading. So have a clear vision of where you want to go, and make sure that the people you're leading see that vision. And we'll talk about influence coming up. The third thing that I did, and some people like it, some people don't, but I was a big believer in mantras. So every year I would start off with a mantra. It was a part of the bigger vision, the bigger goal, but it was something that I needed to accomplish that year that was going to constantly be in the minds of the people that I was leading. For example, there was a point where we had been stagnant in building our middle management. And so I thought of the mantra, step up so others can step in. And what happened incredibly, and it was on every conversation of every leader that was working, with me was saying it. It was the mantra for the year. And we literally grew our middle management 40% that year, by showing people and talking about it and keeping it in front of them. So whatever organization that you're leading, think of what that vision is. Think of the steps that you're going to take to get to your vision, get to your goal, and then make a mantra of one of those steps. And that's all the conversation is about that year, just that mantra.
That's fantastic. I know our listeners are going to love all of that. And, I think the final thing that I think about when I think about these student organizations and the student leaders that are listening right now, a lot of these organizations are really being run by like 2 or 3 people, right? I mean, it's the 5% that do all the work and the 95% are in the background somewhere. So how do you get your whole team to buy in, to stay in with your vision, and then ultimately work their hearts out for you, because these 2 or 3 leaders in the organization are getting burnt out?
Yes, for sure. So, yeah, I mean, just first of all, start off with the premise that if you have a title in that organization, it doesn't mean anything. Okay. You have to earn whatever you're going to want. So now you've got this vision of where you want to take the organization. The most important part that comes next is you've got to gain influence. Otherwise, it's just you with the vision walking alone. And you don't want that. You want your team. You want everybody buying in and helping to get to that goal. So you gain influence a couple ways. One way is that you get results. People trust results. So they don't have to be huge, but they have to be small results that the people that are following you are saying, wow, I guess he knows what he's talking about. Okay, yeah, I'm going to buy in. I see what's happening. Life for me is a little bit better today because of that decision he made, and I'm going to buy in. That's trust. The other part of trust is that they have to know that you sincerely care about them. And I don't mean that you care about them for your own good and your own results. I mean that you care about them, their families, their concerns, their fears, that you're truly, truly concerned about them. And when they know that you care, that you really, 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 really care, then that trust goes through the roof. And so now what happens is you now have a team of people who see your vision, that have bought into your vision, that you're able to influence. They trust you. And as a team, they're not only going to do whatever they can for you, but they're going to do whatever they can for the team, because they don't want to let the team down and they don't want to let you down. And that's a great combination to have when you're leading a group of people.
Man, that's a phenomenal answer. I love everything about it. I think you're right on the money. So you've just given a great lesson to our college students today. No question about it. And, we do love good food here at the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. So I'm wondering, you spend a lot of time in Dallas. What's your favorite restaurant out there?
Well, I got to tell you something. It's one of my favorite restaurants anywhere. And I've eaten at a lot of restaurants. So I'm a big sushi fan.
All right.
At one point, I was going to eat at every Nobu all over the world, right? But I found a sushi place. It actually started in Austin. They opened one up in Dallas. They now have one in Florida, and it's called Uchi Sushi. And the chefs are so creative because they'll mix stuff. They'll mix citrus with a fish, with this and that. It's really, really, really creative. It's not just the regular cookie cutter, I'll have a California roll, It's sushi that's creative, that's really tasty. And if you're in Texas or if you're in Miami, oh my gosh, you'll love it. You'll love it. I know
I'm gonna have to go and check that out. I don't have good sushi. I'm also born in New York City, so there's definitely some good sushi there in New York, which is fantastic. And but living in Nashville, there is no good sushi here. It's just
The ocean isn't close, is
no,
it?
the ocean is nowhere close. So whatever sushi you're getting, let me tell you, it is flown in or it's brought in by a truck. It is not fresh.
For sure. For sure.
Well, this has been a lot of fun, Roger. So if our listeners want to pick up your book, it's called The Most Unlikely Leader. And of course, it's by Roger Smith. Or perhaps they want to get you to come and speak on their college campus, because obviously you have lots of great information to share with students. Where should they go to connect with you?
So you can go to rogersmith.me, and that's my landing page. You can order, it's a pre-order right now. The book publishes May, but you can pre-order the book, the bio's there, and then the links to each of my social media is also on there. So you can just about find anything. My email is GED2CEO@iCloud.com. If you want to email me, if you ever, need just some advice and you just want to, a quick question about leadership or anything, not an issue at all.
That is fantastic. RogerSmith.me. Go and pre-order his book. It's called The Most Unlikely Leader, due out in May. And I'm telling you, this guy's story is incredible, and all the nuggets that he's sharing with you, boy, oh boy, this is the kind of mentor that every college student needs. So congratulations on all the success. Thank you so much for sharing this wisdom with college students that are just trying to make it. And I think, having somebody who's been there and has done that, that is going to turn into just tremendous opportunity for everybody who's listening. So thank you for sharing that, Roger.
Thank you so much, Michael.
It's been a pleasure. And to our listeners, we hope you enjoyed Roger's talk. Please like it and share it on social media. Go and pick up his book. And I hope to see you on the next episode of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.